Alex, you are online?
Yes, I am online.
Okay, Alex. So Alex Gelman from Innovation Consulting Group, he's the CTO there and also IEEE leader. I'd like to introduce Alex briefly, which I have worked with him for almost 25 years. He's a Life Fellow, holds ME and PhD, Electrical Engineering from City University of New York, and currently serving as the CTO for Innovation Consulting Group. Dr. Gelman has an illustrious career, including chief scientist at Panasonic Research, director of Internet Access Architecture Research at Bell Communication Research, Belcore, where I spent about 13 years. He's the pioneer in multimedia, multi-point communication, streaming video over networks, XDSL-based Internet access, and numerous publication patents to his name. His leadership in the IEEE community includes co-founding 8 IEEE conferences, initiating ComSec standards activity, which the RRSA being one of those, driving standardization in power line communication and cognitive radio. Throughout his career, Dr. Gelman has served in various influential roles, including 4 terms as ComSec Vice President, 2 terms as an IEEE SA Board of Governors, where he was the Vice President of Technical Innovation and Engagement. He currently chairs the IEEE Access and Core Network Standards Committee and co-chairs several IEEE initiatives. His contributions have earned him several prestigious awards, including ComSec Donald McClellan Meritorious Service Award, IEEE SA Corporate Standards Sponsor Award, and IEEE SA Standards Medallion. So Alex has been a great leader and kind of enabler for many of the standards that have been produced through this power process. With that, Alex, I think you'll be talking about the whole RRSA process and folks, and then kind of a best practice, right? And then followed by, we'll go over some of the proposals, starting with Dilip, and that's it. So I'll give it back to you, Alex. You got about 40 to 50 minutes if you want to go through it. Thanks. So you can share your slide now.
Yeah, Ashutosh, the screen is blurry. The slides are blurry. Somebody needs to focus.
Are you planning to share, or should we share? You want me to?
No, I can. Can you see?
No, it has not. Sam? Okay, it's coming up. Wait, Alex is sharing. So, Sam? Oh, I'm just trying to talk to my AV folks. So can you share, Alex? Yeah.
It's coming up now.
Yeah. So Alex, your slides are up now.
Okay, are they clear on other screens, people that online?
I can see, I'm in Zoom, I can see.
Yeah, you are good, I can see.
Okay.
All right, go ahead please, Alex, thanks.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Ashutosh, for the introduction, and good morning, everybody. So my name is Alex Gelman. I have a bunch of jobs. When you retire, IEEE gives you a lot of jobs, so you are gainfully employed on a volunteer basis. This is the outline. I'll talk about technology evolution and standardization, the ecosystem. This is a complex issue. Not many people in IEEE even know how standards an organization operates and their relationship with the technical activities, and what are the structure of Standards Association and the societies, what is their structure in terms of standards activities. And then the philosophy and the methodology. What do we want to achieve by RSAs, and what do we do, and what do we don't do, and what we don't do. So why standards? Everybody, you need to understand what makes people tick. Everybody has their own idea about standards and their own mission and their own aspirations about them and interest. A lot of people have material interest. Some people have professed interest. Professed meaning it's just your profession. You're interested in this from technical point of view. But companies, they have material interest. They have patents in the game that they want to position in the standards. They have solutions that they want to position in the standards, etc. So sometimes it's not necessarily a technical discussion that prevails. Sometimes it's a discussion of what I have to offer and what you have to offer, and what do we agree to. So what does IEEE, what business is IEEE in? We offer a consensus platform, consensus building platform. antitrust scrutinized and very fair process, very democratic process. And we are unique in that we maybe only compare to IEEE, ITF and W3C. Others are very different from us. If you take ETSI, ITU, 3GPP, ISO, they all different from us, but we have agreements with them and we operate in collaborative mode according to the rules established by Standards Association. So where do we fit? Where does Standards Association fit, and where the technical activities-based standards activities fit? So Standards Association is peer to geographic activities and technical activities and educational activities. President of Standards Association is like a vice president of IEEE, like a vice president for technical activities or for geographic activities. And then Standards Association, as you saw, has a board of governors and their committees, and then it has staff, very professional, I should say. They really we take guidance from them a lot and ask them. There are some people that are real gurus in process. And by the way, no meeting of Standards Association committee happens without lawyers. Standards Association carries a lot of liability and has a huge say in the indemnification process. So they spend, I don't know, it's in the millions annually for legal fees, and that's why they're the only one who has exclusive right to guide standards process. And then they have a standards board, which actually to which all standards committees report. Look on the left. The standards committee report to the standards board, and standards board has their committees involved in new projects, involved in approving of standards, patent policies, etc., etc. So societies and councils who report to TAB, and TAB has a TAB cost, TAB Committee on Standards, established in 2018, very recently, 6 years ago. And they govern the societies and councils in terms of the technical aspect of standards development. They guide standards committees. Technically, they create them and they operate them, but under the rules supplied by the Standards Association. So this is kind of a peculiar situation, right? Not different from others, I must say. If you do a publication, you actually adhere to PSPB and the Publications Board. If you do conferences, you do it according to the conference committee. So societies basically don't have much leeway. They have significant leeway in conferences, how they run them, and publications. However, the rules come from the conference committee, from Publication Board. So here is the same. The rules comes from Standards Association. So I would like to kind of position it in our modus operandi, like where do standards fit, in which IEEE products kind of appear where, and where standards appear, and what standards appear and when. What makes us researchers and IEEE members tick is a timeline of technology's evolution, whatever technology we are in. If you're an optical communication expert, if you are a massive MIMO or just MIMO, or you are a photonic society member, you are involved in specific technology when you do your job, daytime job. So this is a simplistic model. If you look at technology, it kind of goes through from a concept, when the concept just can be born, and it's socialized in very close circle, and very few people know how to spell the acronyms that get born by these champions of a concept, and no investment. Sometimes it's a skunk job. I mean, those of us who worked in the labs know that sometimes we did a job that even your own boss didn't know, and sometimes only your boss knew, but his boss didn't. So that happens all the time, and then you come out of the closet and bring your project for approval when you already see that, yeah, it will fly. And then in pre-competitive stage, there is a proof of concept that exists, but no business model yet. Nobody knows what to do with it. So many of us work, like when I worked for Bellcore, we worked in pre-competitive mode. Bell Labs worked in pre-competitive mode. Very often, the applied research particularly. There was sometimes we worked against our own owners. Like, for example, we worked on the internet, which our owners didn't didn't like much, and actually they suffered from it because a lot of telephone business disappeared due to internet. But we worked on it because at that time nobody knew what will happen. But the chips fall as they may. A competitive stage when people suddenly discovered, yeah, it proved it works and it can make money. So then people go back into their labs and quietly start developing the technology, and then comes deployment. It pays to say that if you look at the red text on the left, the strongest intellectual property is in the conceptual stage. If you write a paper there, it will be highly cited because you created this technology, if you created that technology. Or if you write papers, still, you will be one of the first who writes papers there. If you create a patent, it will be a very strong patent. It is very difficult to kill because you can have very, very strong claims. Nobody is in that field yet. So researchers tend to be there and kind of move into pre-competitive stage and then kind of fade out. So the intellectual property strength goes down. Intellectual property relevance, however, goes up. Those of us who work for the labs, research labs, know how many technologies didn't make it. How many technologies didn't make because of standards, and some not because of standards, just the market. His Majesty Marketplace decided that some technologies don't deserve to live. Look at VHS and Betamax, right? Not necessarily best wins, but those win who win, and they live and the others don't, or live or have a smaller corner of the market. So that's an interesting situation that says, okay, so where do the researchers operate? Researchers operate in the beginning and then disappear, and then practitioners come in, and a handoff zone is where things happen. The handoff happens, and it is very important for those who are in standards business, because standards without the industry will not exist, not for long. Some standards have customers who are not in the industry. Some standards are designed for actually other researchers to use, like if they're like a channel model, or if they are reference architecture, or it's some kind of a framework for something, like framework for nanoscale networking. Usually researchers are customers for this, but these standards are just the beginning, right? At the end, standards make it to the world and bring and work for the humanity when they are materialized in the products. So that requires a handoff. Now, if you look at our products, our IEEE products, our workshops are very often in conceptual phase. Not all workshops are in conceptual phase, but conceptual phase only operates in the very, very early stages in workshops. You can have workshops everywhere, but the first things, I've been to workshops where coherent optical communication was born, where ADSL was first spelled, ADSL, by Lachleiter, Joe Lachleiter, and others. So those who've been to these workshops know what I mean. These workshops not often even created records, because they were just brainstorming sessions where people discussed new things, and they were at each other's throat fighting sometimes. Then come conferences. If you were exposed to patent litigation, you know that the prior art shown by judges or by lawyers are typically conference papers, not publication, but conference papers, because things get disclosed first in the conferences before they get into the journals. So our conferences get the first shot at the intellectual property. That's the value of conferences. And very often, especially when you work in pre-competitive research, you know that before you go to a conference and present your paper, you publish at least provisional patents. And when you do your intellectual property planning, you decide what you patent provisionally, and what you disclose at the conference, so others couldn't patent it. I mean, this is how practitioners look at it. And when you work for pre-competitive, and then my other job in Panasonic was in pre-competitive company, that's what you do. In Belcor, you could disclose anything. in Panasonic, you could disclose basically nothing that was not cleared by the committee that clears the papers. In Belco, it was formality. In here, well, not always. I mean, my papers were a couple times pulled out of the conference because I didn't ask permission on time. But it was easy, believe me, with comparing to a pre-competitive, pre-competitive phase or competitive, God forbid. That's very, very. In competitive, it's very strict. In pre-competitive, it kind of loose. In conceptual, it's completely open. So now, on the right, you see standards. These are market-driven standards. We do these in IEEE. If you look at PES and others, they do market-driven standards. Some of them become as disruptive technologies, but then they become market standards, marketable, and they kind of support the market. Many technologies, emerging technologies, are not created because of market, but in spite of the market. My favorite example is a session initiation protocol that Henning Schulstein of Columbia and Jonathan Rosenberg created, and others. A bunch of people have to be credited by that. It's in IETF. It caused more redistribution of wealth than Bolshevik Revolution because companies like long distance business disappeared from the face of the earth, and that was like a $10 billion business those years back in the 80s. And telephony now is commodity because you can call and Skype and WhatsApp and Viber, whatever. Telephony is a commodity. So they caused a lot of, and so that when they appeared, it was a disruptive technology. But today, it's accepted market. Market technology is now the market. So emerging technologies operate first, then market-driven technologies operate later. Now, if you look where the blue arrows project, practitioners are in the picture. If you look where arrows project from the emerging technologies, they are in researchers, and at the end, starting from pre-competitive phase, at the end of it, actually with practitioners. So this is what defines our modus operandi with RRSAs. And RRSA mission is to launch standards in the conceptual and pre-competitive phase with researchers and think of handing off, bringing in practitioners on time, timely, so it could be handed off and industry could pick it up and run with it. So the challenges here is that you need researchers, and researchers are not kind of compatible with the standards process. For example, if you look at 802.11 and see who developed that standard, and you will see maybe, I don't know how many names, maybe exaggerate, but you will see hundreds of names. The 802.15 I participated many years ago. There's certainly a lot of, like, close to that number, a few hundred people listed on a standard. So researchers are not okay with that. Researchers need to be allocated personal credit for their advancement, because what makes them tick is not what makes practitioners tick. And therefore, we have to take it into consideration and accommodate that. I'll talk later. What do we do about it? Bringing in the researchers is not straightforward either, because the company is not materially interested in that. The universities don't care about what happens in the standard. They care only about technical work that their researchers do, their advancement, their publications. So you need to come up with publications. We created a publication of standards contributions. I'll a little bit talk about it later too. So and etc. Just giving you a flavor of what it takes to bring in researchers. Researchers want to become fellows, so we came up with a fellow standards contributor category for fellow, etc. All this was motivated by this desire to bring in researchers into standards. So this is what this is just a surface of the challenges. There are many other challenges, financing, etc. That occurs. Now, the handoff scenarios are different, and we've seen, like, these are the cases that we've seen in the FDC initiatives. like in ComSoc, for example, I can speak for ComSoc. I cannot speak for others, though we participated in like some projects went to computer societies. So industry may issue a research grant. It happened to IEEE standardization component in academia. So when I was in Panasonic, I had like 20 universities on a contract. I was chief scientist, 20 universities on a contract, and all of them had the standardization component. Like we gave to Monash, a guy, a grant with a condition that he becomes a working group chair of detecting network attachments, and we covered his trips. Of course, we gave him a grant sufficient for all that, etc. So we do these things. We had industry also retains academic as independent of independent consultants, for example. We had situations in RRSA, but basically industry put an eye on a researcher and hired them, or gave them grant or retained them as a consultant. And it happened to us more than once when alliances came to us and asked to do the standardization. Green Touch Alliance, an example for Green Touch standards, and they retained Jafar Miglani to be their guy running these standards. He's now the standards committee chair in ComSoc. We have no idea what arrangement he had with them, but obviously they supported them somehow. Now, in pre-RRSA, the academia and industry partnered with us and asked us to help them with standardization. And an example would be the OpenFOC consortium that became, and then eventually Internet Engineering, Industrial Internet Consortium, which is now at IoT. I mean, they changed their names very, very often. So now, when you operate in emerging technology standards, you can't be isolated. That doesn't work, and it won't happen. This is your environment. On the left, you see technical activities. So there are conferences, there are publications, and there are awards, the fellow elevation process. And we created actually in ComSoc a publication communication standards magazine, which is co-owned with the VTS now and Standards Association. And we have a standards for communication and networking conference. We have CSCN, which is this year, I believe, I forgot where. But Pericles Chatamasius is the steering committee chair. There is also TAP Committee on Standards, was created, as I said, in 2018, and they govern the standards activities based in societies and councils. So that's a new thing, and not everybody knows about them, but you will know when they give you some mandate to do what to do. On the right is Future Directions Committee, and Future Directions Committee has initiatives. These initiatives, most of them already graduated. So these all initiatives have standards components. It's mandated in FDC now, and they have funds for this. So if you come up with an idea, it can be funded. The first pre-standardization activities can be funded by Future Directions, gladly co-funded by SA, as it happened a lot in mine and Mehmet's activities. We had SA gladly co-funding them. On the top, you have Standards Association, and we created Contributor Collector, as I said before, where people can publish their standards contribution, and it's discoverable. It has digital object identifier, can be searched out. You can be cited for your contribution to a standard, and that's your proof. And the fellow committee knows about it, and they pay attention to that. That's their proof of your contribution and your impact on a standard. And of course, the SA practices and SCSCOM, which is a committee for standards which have no home, and of course the ICCOM, Industry Connections, which right now is the source of standards project this is why this RRSA is happening. The consortia are in the bottom, and ORAN is kind of, we consider it is like on a level of consortia because many entities participate in it. So the structure typically in the society, this is considered the functional diagram. In ComSoc, this is a physical diagram, but in general, in PS, it's a functional. In computer society, it's sort of semi-functional, semi-physical. You have standards development on the left, operates completely under this rules of supplied by IEEE SA. And on the right, standards-related activities, pre-standardization, co-standardization, etc. RRSA is here, ICCOM, peer to ICCOM, publications related to standards, conferences related to standards, industry engagement and methodology of standards, etc. That's another board. In ComSoc, it's Standardization Program Development Board. It's kind of dormant lately, but because there is no top, we used to have a VP standards, we don't have it now. So that's why this kind of board didn't work in tandem for the past 6 years as they should have been, and they worked before when they were really productive. But however, some people like Mehmet, myself, Rob Fish, they kind of filled that gap and sort of do that work, try to carry the load for the other board. So RRSA approach. So what does it do? So we bring together a balance of people. We typically kind of do a manual selection. This time we don't, some RRSAs don't, but what we try to do, aspire to do, is pick the balanced group. Why? Well, for the reasons I mentioned before. You need some population of practitioners. You need significant population of researchers. So practitioners are the buyers, researchers are sellers, and RRSA is often the platform where that matchmaking occurs. And all these handoffs happen because of that. They either hire them or give them a grant or whatever. We even had a grant to IEEE to support certain group. Project 1935 was a grant from Internet Engineering, Industrial Internet Consortium, or Open FAR Consortium, it was before. They gave a grant, so an academic, a guy from Taiwan University could run it because he was not funded by the university for this. So then we widely solicit participation of people among technical committees in appropriate organizations, and then we handpick people based on their position statements. Then when the hosting committee selects, you need to reduce the entropy in a brainstorming session so you come out with results. If you have 200 people, nothing will come out. If we have 20 people, certainly things can come out. And even there, we do clustering of the elements suitable for standardization. We do clustering and split into subgroups, and we then come together, do readouts, and decide, we down select the topics that we're going to focus on. So it is beneficial for success of RRSA if you bring in academics if they cannot be sent by their universities. So the funds that we demand from IEEE, FDC or SA or TAP costs, that's another source of funding, primarily go to bringing in those who don't have support of their universities to come there. If you don't bring researchers, the success of RRSA is questionable. As in emerging technologies, it's not necessarily true for market standards, market-driven, market-relevant standards. RRSA session, the objective is, of course, to come up with a PAR, but not necessarily right away. Very often, the ideas are raw, and they have to go back to the drafting board. You go back to a research project, you go back, create ICAID in industry connections. The possible outcomes of these research groups and industry connections can be just white paper, can be just some kind of a, maybe like a guideline but desirably is to come up with a PAR. Everywhere when a PAR comes, it's a success story. When a PAR doesn't come, there are interim solutions, which is okay. Eventually, they'll bring to the PAR. But the ultimate goal is PAR. You got to keep your eyes on the ball. So we proposed very often the industry connection. We propose study groups, and study group goes to a standards committee already. That's the already IEEE SA domain. They only allowed study groups, which is kind of wide solicitation and open process. A research project in the society can be according to the P&Ps of the society. So the way the session runs, you identify an item, and as I said, it takes a lot of work to identify these items after the subgrouping and down selection. You look at that item, examine it, and if it's ready, you create a PAR right there. If possible, right there. Or you can postpone it to the next RRSA if you ran out of time, but usually we do it right there. We hardly had, if you do a preparation, you hardly come out without a PAR. That's why SA loves it, and they give us funds if we ask for. If it's a maybe, almost ready to fly, then a study group should be created under a standards committee that you pick as a sponsor, and then, again, they come up with a PAR. If they are not ready to fly, then you go to ICCOM or a society-based research project where you come up with the outcome can be whatever I told you before, white paper, or finally a PAR proposal. If not, then you go back here, and it's an iterative process, and you do it again. So RRSA is a professional service. That's how. That's how you look at it. It's a professional service. What we help with is we help with crystallizing the idea for standards, kind of shaping it up, help you with forming a working group, advise you that you need this kind of balance. You need some industry, or you may not need industry if it's like really a scholarly standard. And we had some of those in ComSci, where just a technical committee with only one industry person from GE Research was the chair. Others were all academics. And then we help you with defining the objectives of the pre-standardization activities, because we see very quickly whether it's a kind of mature, ready to fly or not ready to fly proposal. We have advice on funding possibilities. There are different ones: TAP cost funding, SA funding, FDC funding. There are all kind of possibilities that exist, and industry funding through IEEE Foundation. So pre-standardization activities is not an issue as funding. Standard development needs to be sustained by a materially interested party. It's again why you need practitioners, why you need industry to support that process, because it can be lengthy. It can be a year, it can be more. For a proposal for a standardization project, we'll help you with building a balanced core team. We help you with title, scope, need, and purpose right there in IEEE. We help you to map out the family maybe of standards, maybe modularizing, like this is not your proposal, maybe it has to be split into proposals because there are different dynamics in the different parts of your proposal. And therefore, the time constants in one versus the other are different, and you need to revise one part more often, maybe amend it than the other. Then why would you want to consolidate it in one standard? Keep them in two. It's examples that are other motivations for modularizing. And then securing a proper standards committee. We will help you. We know very well what's going on in IEEE, and if standards committee can be found, then it's SCSCOM in SA. They're designed for orphan projects, emerging and strategic standards committee. And then we familiarize you with the standards activity process. We're a unique organization with no precedents exist except for IETF and W3C, but even they have a different organization and processes. They are more loose. There are much more in stake in IEEE. There are patents wars that happen and patent lawsuits. Therefore, we are under much more rigorous oversight from the Standards Association, and actually Department of Justice, if you will, of USA, because we're incorporated in New York. Now, the standards development process is straightforward. You can see it on the circle described in the text. You initiate the project. You develop the draft. It's easy to say, very difficult to do. It takes years to develop the draft. A lot of contradictions, but it can happen. Controversies, positioning of companies and personalities. Sponsor ballot. We are the widest balloted standard that exists on the planet, because we have like a public ballot. Everybody can ballot and produce comments, and the working group is obliged to address every comment. Not obliged to implement them, but obliged to address every comment. Even if you reject it, you still have to look at it and show that you looked at it. And then approval process by RevCom. It's a Standards Review Committee, and SASB gives a final approval, and then publication. Thank you very much. So we are open for business, myself and Mehmet, and we can always help you with any questions related to standards. Thank you.
So, Alex, thank you, and Mehmet, thank you again.
Thank
At
you.
this time, hold on, let me see. Okay, folks, so I'm back. Before we move to the next deck, Alex and Mehmet, I just put a note in the chat box. People have any question, clarification on what Alex and Mehmet presented today? Please, if you want to ask, put it in the chat box. So if you want to ask in open mic, you can unmute yourself and ask. Maybe we'll allow maybe 5 to 10 minutes to ask any clarification questions. Alex, how do you prefer? Do you like to answer questions? Obviously, people can always send mail to you, but because we got about 120 people on the Zoom, if somebody has a specific question in terms of the logistics, your slides are pretty self-explanatory, but I was thinking this is a chance for them to talk to you and Mehmet directly.
No problem. Either way, all of the above.
So I will start while other people are thinking. So what is I know we did that last year, and the follow-up is important, right? So what is a real success criterion? And you have done many of the RRSA, you were one of the co-inventor of RRSA along with others, and you have seen other RRSA, right? So if we want to make RRSA for Open RAN or 6G, this activity is successful, what are the things we should be doing? Maybe can provide us some guidance there.
Well, what I said in the talk, you need to, what you do in the very first RSA is almost doesn't matter. You can have like, if you want to have just an open session where you preliminarily discuss the project, that's fine. But eventually, if you want to come out with a result, you need to focus, as I said, you need to pick the participants for the RRSA, solicit people that have expertise and have material interest in that. Because you have people that have expertise and can create the project and can run the project, but somebody has to sustain the project. So you got to get a customer, you got to get stakeholders into the picture. Industry, companies that are really potential buyers for this. It all depends on the technology. It depends on the scope of the proposed idea.
So my next question would be, what is the duration from the time we propose? Let's say we have few proposals. How much time it takes to generate a PAR, and once a PAR is established, how much time it takes to standardization, right? And what are the main ingredients in terms of timeline?
Yeah, PAR is easy. PAR is easy. The idea for standardization has almost zero value without a backup. You got to have people behind it. You have to have champions, at least one, who is willing to take it on and be the chair of the emerging working group. You have to have, and that group needs to have a core constituency already prepared to take on the responsibility. There are minimum requirements by IEEE SA. Like you need to have so many entities. I don't know what it is now, 3 or 5 entities for an entity project, and a certain number of individuals. Typically, people come to us with 5 to 10 individuals that they already know that we'll be working on this. Eventually, SA advertises it widely, and you can be wildly successful, and you will have hundreds of individuals which will outvote you on the first day, or you may have few, or you may have none, and so you need to be prepared with the group you start to take it to the end. So PAR can be made in like 15 minutes and submitted to my project if you have a standards committee agreeable to consider it. And then the time takes till the next meeting of that standards committee that you have to sell the PAR to. That's it. After that, it's the next meeting of NASCOM and SASB. At most, it should not take more than 3 months, for example, if you're really ready to fly. If it's a raw idea, then it can take more. I will give you an example. 1901 project took a year. It's the longest study group that ever happened in IEEE because there were a lot of companies, a lot of interest, and a lot of fight. They right away had more than you need a constituency, consortia and companies. 80 entities. When the project started, it was 80 entities. So it took a year to come to an agreement on a PAR. Can you imagine? Then it took a lot of years to come to the agreement on a project, which ended up with 2 files, 2 physical layers, because they couldn't come to a consensus on one. So some projects are like this. Most projects are not. Most projects are more easier to reach consensus because they're like-minded people get together.
Yeah, there is a question from Sandeep Agarwal from CDOT. Is there a risk of developing a bias standards proposed by just few people if we go through RRSA process as compared to classical process of submitting PAR, conducting meetings in 1-2 years, and then develop a standard where broader consensus is achieved?
This is no, I'm sorry, but that's how it is done. I mean, RRSA is pre-standardization. You develop a PAR, go through consensus process, create a group. You do the same thing. I mean, we're talking about the same thing. I don't see any difference. We are helping you to have a start. We're not replacing any process that exists. You're doing it the standard way.
So this is a pre-standardization, as you said correctly, right?
Pre-standardization, right.
Yeah.
There's no rule in SA how the PAR comes to fruition. There is a rule how it comes to fruition under SA auspices, study group only. But there is no rule how PARs come from the industry, ready to fly. We get flooded by them straight from the industry. PARs come from RRSA. So there's no rule. Any PAR is okay, but it goes through the same process. There is no exceptions in IEEE. There's only one entity, a Standards Association, that is allowed to do standards. So we're not replacing anybody. We are from Standards Association. Mehmet, myself, we are operating under Standards Association rules, but under our heads, under ComSoc and FDC, and your ICCOM initiative, which is, by the way, SA also, you can do whatever you want when you work on PARs. We're helping you to do it, so you don't make mistakes in preparation of the PARs. You do it right. And if you don't know the rules, we'll help you with the rules. You don't have the funding, we'll help you with the fund. I mean, this is what we do, but we don't replace the process. No, it's the same process.
Yeah, I think, I mean, when
this is
look
Mehmet. Can I
Yes.
add my 2 cents?
Mehmet, please.
Yeah, I just want to add my 2 cents to this discussion. So I think the questions you are asking can be interpreted as what is the success of RRSA process? Or what is the success of preparing a PAR? Or what is the success of project officially accepted by SA? Right? Those are different kind of questions. So if we take on the what is the success of RSA, the success of RSA is eventually to generate some PARs, some ideas, okay? And the idea, what is the success of PAR? PAR actually is a application to the IEEE SA to start to request for a standardization project. So when you have the idea out of RSA process, the next step is to put that idea into format. It's a very simple template, one-page template almost, which describes the scopes and benefits, why you're doing this one, right? It's very simple. So, but it needs to be constructed properly, okay? So because that part, that application, that will be going through some bureaucratic process within IEEE SA that several committees will look into, will decide whether it's acceptable or not. So as part of that process, once you have a PAR, you need to find a standard committee that will sponsor your idea, your PAR. I think that's very critical. I think one of the things that you had the RSA previously as part of ORAN, and I think that process is not followed. In other words, I don't think you went through finding a standard committee that will sponsor those ideas, those PAR ideas. Okay, so I just want to make sure that those
No,
things are
absolutely.
understood.
I think there are several stages during the whole thing to make it successful. I mean, you answered my question and Alex as well. And Sandeep also clarified his question in terms of how RRSA acts like a catalyst to help run through this pre-standardization process. So, I mean, you're right. Let's say we had 10 presentation last year, and we chose like maybe 3 or so, take it to the next step. And Dilip is one of them, Dilip Krishnaswamy, our next presenter, and Chatai was the other one. He couldn't make it this time. And there was another one, and the presenter could not be here today. So some of those mature ideas can be put into PAR form, and which Dilip is probably going to show that example today, Mehmet, and you just mentioned. So one guidance advice we got from both of you is to do the follow-up process, have the folks who have the mature ideas put through the PAR form, and then submit to both of you since you are leading the board, and actually start the PAR process. I know there are few successful PAR that have come out of Future Network Technical Community, Smart City being one of them, led by Narendra. And so that helps us to clarify what are the things we did not do, what we should be doing to make this a success story, right? Thank you.